Somebody asked me if I have any tips for my hair, and yes, of course, I got tips. And the question was from Alpha Buddha Band on Instagram. First thing, you want to use some kind of one of those clay hair products. Second thing is what you do with your styling technique. So it's a four-step process. You take your right hand, you go up with the other hand, then sideways again. So in fast movement, it's 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. It's that simple, guys. All right. Let me see if Angela's here. There she is. All right, we got Angela. Did you just finish training?
Hold on. Yeah, I'm actually on my way. For some reason, my car wants to connect. Yeah, I'm on my way to a training session, and I double booked myself. So
Oh
right after
shit!
this, I'm going to. Yeah,
All
I'm
right,
gonna do.
we'll make it quick. How much time do you have?
I got a little bit. I got like at least 30 minutes.
All right, cool. So then we'll just go over some questions that some people have for you. Um, One of them was from Gona Taliego, and she was asking how you feel about the new rule the females need to wear elbow pads to fight in Thailand, and it hasn't been set yet. They were supposed to, I guess, hold a conference yesterday, and yeah, I guess they were talking about that there were some good-looking women that got cut up with elbows, and so they want to make it mandatory for females to have elbow pads. So what are your thoughts on that?
Ah, that's stupid. There's the girls who are fighting with elbows. They know the risk, and
Yeah,
yeah, like everyone can get cut up. You're a handsome guy, you can get cut up, but you don't
yeah,
care. You heal
right.
up. Like I'm lucky. I only got cut once in training. I'm not sure which side it's on, but you can't even see it. It's like a little scratch over the eye, but you can't even see it. Like it's not that big of a deal. I think people I don't know. I think there's this weird feeling sometimes when it comes to women and damage. Like a lot of times you see people being more excited about a submission artist as a female than someone who just brutalizes their opponents, like Chris Cyborg. She would
Yeah,
destroy people's faces, and then people would feel uncomfortable because they're like, oh, that poor girl, look how messed up she is. She's supposed to be pretty, and she needs it to get a husband and do other
right,
stuff
right.
that stuff that women traditionally do. But no, I think women should be allowed to throw elbows, for sure. Like look at MMA. Like everyone who's gotten cut up with elbows, they heal up. They look better the next day. Look at Claudia. She looks fine now. She got cut up with some elbows too. So
Right.
I think they're micromanaging. They need to just let women do what they want to do, and maybe happy compromise would be that the opponents can decide. Like same thing as like when we did amateur in New York. Like we could decide if we're fighting in headgear or if we're fighting in shin guards, or if
Yeah,
we want to just like fight with no gear. Maybe that
yeah,
could be like a comfortable or like a compromise. But I think that's silly. That shouldn't be.
yeah.
That shouldn't be.
Unfortunately, when you're dealing with different cultures and when you're doing things in different places, then they have, a different mentality, and they still, women are still not allowed to step into certain rings or even in gyms or in certain rings when you're at a stadium fight like Lumpini Stadium doesn't allow women to touch the ring or obviously step inside the ring. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
always going to be an issue.
It's pretty different out there. I remember when I was trying to figure out what gym to go to in Thailand. I did a lot of research just because I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to have that awkward moment where I go to train in the ring with the other guys and they're like, "No, get out of here," and then
Yeah.
I'm in another country and I'm kind of at their disposal. So yeah, I did a lot of research just to make sure I didn't run into that because it's just being from being from like my family and how we were brought up. That was just make make the whole experience like less fun. So
Yes.
yeah, it's
Speaking.
crazy.
Yeah. Speaking
Oh, go ahead.
of you going to Thailand, do you have any tips for female fighters that would like to go over there? Like what are like your maybe top two or three tips?
I would say just do your research. Find a forum that has like a lot of recent posts and that has a lot of women who contribute to it, and just see what their experience was like, and see if it's something that you would like to do.
Yeah.
I forget what forum I was on, but when I was doing my research, there was maybe it was Reddit or something, but there were a lot of forums where you could, or ShareDog maybe, but there were a lot of forums where you could just like kind of Google which gym you're looking at and see how people's experiences were there. So that would be one thing, and another thing would just, uh, don't go there with your own expectations. Like, be open to their style of training, be open to their work
Yeah.
routine, and yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy the grind. Like, going to Thailand made me a lot tougher. I think it made me question my coach at home last, because I would see these kids like they're like 13, 14, and they're putting in crazy work, and it just kind of inspired me to be more hardworking as an athlete. So I think, yeah, just go out there, do your research, make sure you're not going to a gym where they won't let you train in the ring because that would suck. And yeah, just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, those are good tips.
Mhm.
Um, so I like to put forward questions, about things that how high level people or elite level people think, and it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or if you're a businessman. I feel like there's always something um, that's like the same. It's across the whole field. So you
Yeah.
ending up where you are today, or you fighting at a high level where you are now. What do you think was like the biggest factor in you getting to where you are now?
I think just putting work in every day towards your goal. So I think one of the cheesiest things that I hear that I actually try to use is 1% better every day.
Hmm.
And whether you're training mentally on a day off, or whether you're training physically, like during team training, or running, or doing whatever, just always focusing on improving a little bit each day. And I think that's what's really gotten me over my bad moments. Like those big humps in my career where I was just like, man, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't know if I'm ever gonna make it. Just not worrying too much about what's coming next, but just focusing on improving myself every day is probably the best thing that I've done for myself. And after every fight, win or lose, I always look at things that I could have done better, and I try to focus on those for the next fight. And when I win, I'm maybe a little more excited about trying new things. When I lose, I'm more focused on my mistakes and fixing those, or just being stronger, or being more explosive in certain positions, or being more aggressive. So it's always like kind of different depending on the day. But as long as you're just working towards that better version of yourself, then you're on the right track.
And did you specifically have a set goal, or you just wanted to constantly get better, and that was the goal?
when I first started doing Muay Thai, I was just doing it for fun, and it just turned into a career. Like I didn't know that it was gonna turn into this. You know,
Yeah.
I never thought I was even. I didn't even think I had the guts to do the MMA. Like I would see people getting ground and pounded, and I'm just like, oh my god, you know, that's nasty. I'll stick to standing up and punching people. But then the more I got into it, the more I learned, the more I realized those positions aren't that scary as long as you know what you're doing.
Mm.
So a lot of my career I was kind of learning on the job, but I was never discouraged to the point where I felt like I don't belong there. You know, I always felt like I was just this close to making a big breakthrough. And even with the last fight, I feel like, yeah, just right there, you know, like just a little bit more, a few more improvements, and I'm just gonna start sweeping people. So yeah, it's weird. I definitely didn't think it was gonna turn into such a big thing. I didn't think my main income was gonna be fighting.
Yeah.
But I just kind of followed, I guess, followed my nose, like followed my passion. And I was putting a lot of energy into Muay Thai and fighting, even though I wasn't getting paid for it, like as an amateur.
Right.
I just kind of followed my heart and ended up a professional fighter.
Yeah, those are good points. I always tell people that you don't necessarily have to have like an end goal. As long as you keep working on those small little tasks on a daily basis, then that end goal is gonna, you're gonna reach that end goal. So for me, I never really looked at becoming like a title holder, but I just always knew that I was gonna be a champion because I kept working every single day on, like on the small tasks that you were talking about, because those are like the building blocks. That's like the foundation. So if you keep working on that and you're constantly trying to better yourself, you're gonna end up being at the highest level no matter what. It's like almost
Right.
guaranteed. I
Right.
almost want to guarantee people that if they just stick to it and keep working towards it. I mean, it's gonna take at least like 7-8 years, if not 10 years, before you end
Mhm.
up at that level. But you're gonna get there.
Mhm.
So,
Excuse me.
how how important do you think ego is as far as becoming high level or becoming a champion, or anything that you feel like is necessary to talk about as far as ego goes?
Ego. I think ego gets a bad rap. I think as long as you're working hard, ego can be your best friend. You
Yeah.
know, and like not even ego, but just confidence. And I think a lot of people mistake confidence for just being big headed, um, because a lot of times you can't win every fight. You can't knock everyone out. But if you go in there with confidence and you achieve that goal, then that could be the thing that like pushed you ahead in the points, or that could be the thing that makes you take a risk. Just having the confidence, knowing that I can throw this punch as hard as I can, and if I miss, it's gonna be okay. Like I'll throw another hard punch, that one's gonna land. Like I think ego is like a really big, um, just a really necessary thing to have as a fighter, because we're getting out there, and it's really like this thing that a lot of people have nightmares about. You have nightmares about getting in a fight or not being able to defend yourself, or getting embarrassed in front of everyone. And in order to get over those things, you just have to have the confidence to know, hey, whatever happens, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna show out, and yeah, I'm not gonna get embarrassed. I'm gonna fuck this
Yeah.
person up. So yeah, I think confidence is a really important thing. In having a little bit of ego when you go in there, like as long as you're doing the work, as long as you're not using your ego as an excuse not to work as hard, or as an excuse not to, like, not put as much time into training and getting better and drilling. Like as long as you know, like, I got to do the work, but also I'm the best. Like I think that's the best kind of balance you have to do with it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said as far as ego getting a bad name and a bad rap. People automatically assume that with negativity. But I think ego is definitely good, and all of us have ego, obviously, especially somebody that's on a high level. You can't be on a high level without having an ego, because ego to me is competition. Ego is also confidence, you know, and those things go hand in hand when you're at the highest level. You have to have that, and so I feel like as long as you can control that, then you know the ego aspect is a positive thing to have. For example,
Yeah.
let's say there's been times where I was in a fight where, let's say, I would do a technique and it didn't work, and my ego got the best of me, and I said no, I want to keep doing it, and then I would do it
Mhm.
a second time, a third time, and boom, I would keep failing instead of letting go of that part and letting go of
Mhm.
my ego and saying, look, you're not going to be better than this guy in that aspect. Go on to something else and try something else. You know, so that's where ego got me in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, or like trying, like when people try to like grapple the grappler or box with the boxer when they know
Yeah,
there's a easier way to victory. Like, yeah, sometimes ego can mess you up. But I think as long as you're smart with it and you just use all that energy to have confidence in the beginning of the fight and just go in there and just try to kill it, I think it could be a good thing.
yeah, definitely. This kind of goes back to what we were discussing earlier. You know, like longevity and talking about putting in the work and not giving up. So, in your experience at the gym, how many young fighters that were good ended up quitting prematurely, or you know, like ended up giving up because of maybe like a bad loss or for reason, whatever reason may be. Have you seen a
Um,
lot of those cases?
Oh yeah, and it sucks because like you train with them and you see how good they are, and I think a lot of people are born. Um, my coach Brandon, he used to call it being born on third base, where you just pick up things like that. You're really talented at it. For some reason, you can just learn a submission in a few minutes and tap out someone with it in a few minutes later, or you can just pick up like a really tricky strike out of nowhere, and you don't really have to practice it. And then a lot of those people, or sometimes you can fall into a trap where things come easy to you, that when it's time to put in the extra work,
Yeah,
because you're fighting someone who also has that gift, who's also like, just started on third base, they're just a fast learner, they're talented, they're athletic. Um, then it's just a work ethic thing. It's like who's working the hardest. And a lot of times when an athlete hits that person, hits that like level of competition for the first time, it turns them off. It's hard, and it's hard enough fighting someone who isn't as good as you. Like they can still beat you up. They're still gonna try their hardest. They're still gonna be strong, and dangerous. But when you fight someone who is at your level, who gives you a tough fight, I see a lot of people, I guess, shine away from it because it's a lot of hard work, and I don't know, if you can't put the work in, then you're just gonna be disappointed over and over again. So I see that happen a lot. I also see people who go undefeated for a long time. They'll have their first loss, and they might have had like a lot of hard fights up until that point, but they're still undefeated. And then they hit their first loss, and then they're just like, "Fuck this," like that
yeah,
feeling of losing
right.
just destroys them, and it's a really hard thing to do. It's like you almost go through the same process as grief, or Dominic Cruz said it recently. It's like losing a girlfriend that you were in love with. You're heartbroken and it hurts, and I don't know. I think a lot of people when they feel that for the first time, they can't think of possibly going through it again.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of mental. There's a lot to the mental side of being a professional athlete and having all these eyes on you and judging you and worrying about having performance anxiety and all these other things that go into it that you don't really think about when you're not a fighter or when you're not an athlete or whatever the case, whatever your profession is, where you're not in the limelight. It's yeah, it's definitely I definitely have a different perspective on fighters and their performances now than I did before I was like out there, before I was like actually fighting people.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to it, and I definitely don't blame those people for quitting, those talented like young fighters or whatever for quitting, because if your heart's not in it, like it's the worst thing to do. You know, it's so like you know how hard it is and how much time and effort you put into it. But if you're doing it lackluster and if you're not passionate about it, then you're never gonna get over those humps when you have a bad day in practice or you have a bad day in the fights and yeah, it just takes a lot to get out of that funk.
Yeah, I think that word that you just said, passion, that's one of the key words when people ask me, how I stay motivated. And for me, it's like there is no motivation. For me, it's just I love what I do, and I'm always trying to strive to get better. And no matter what level I reach, there's always going to be something that I can improve. And it's like the small little minute details like timing and stuff like that in a fight, or even with our art. Angie's also an artist as well.
Oh
There's
yeah.
there's always small little details that you can improve on. So I feel like that's kind of like the motivation, because the underlying motive is passion.
Mhm. Yeah, if you don't have passion, it's gonna be a hard night for you.
Yeah.
Even when you win, you know, like it's hard. I always remember that Ronda Rousey fight where she was like walking out of the arena looking pissed off because Liz Carmouche like wrenched her jaw like real bad, like she got on her back, wrenched her jaw, and she fought out of it. But I remember her face like walking out of the arena, and that's like an easy night for most fighters. But
Yeah.
I think for her, like, yeah, it was just like kind of it just kind of showed her like, hey, people are tough. Like even when you have their number, they're still tough. Still gonna like come for blood and yeah, I think a lot of times, especially when you have a strong performance against someone, I think it's easy to assume that the fight was easy, even though it's always hard. Like I've never had an easy fight. Even when it looks easy, it's always been hard. I've always been tired afterwards. I've
Yeah.
always like gone, man, that person was strong, even if it didn't look like the person was strong that I was fighting. And I think people forget like when you put 100% of yourself into a fight, like it's never gonna be easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a hard night for anyone who's not into it, who doesn't love like violence and just learning and the whole art of like perfecting like your martial arts and laying it on someone. Like it's you gotta be 100% committed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I know you gotta go train, so
Yeah.
let me just take care of some questions here,
Okay.
and then I'll let you go. Somebody said, not a question, Angie, one of my faves. That was from Eva
Hey,
531.
thanks, Eva. Thank
And
you.
then a lot of people are obviously telling you that you won that fight. I didn't get to see it with Claudia, but I did.
No.
I kept hearing, yeah, that it was a landslide victory on your part. Do you have any
Thank
comments on
you.
that?
Thanks. No, it is what it is. Like I feel like I've been robbed of a few times, and everyone always says, "Oh, well, you got to finish the fight," and it's so hard to finish a fight. Especially when you have all these things coming at you. You have to worry about the takedown. Have to worry about what they're throwing at you. You sometimes you're throwing stuff at them and it just feels like it's not doing anything, even though your corner is saying it's working. And a lot of it. I think from this last fight, I learned a lot. I saw a lot of things that I can improve on, which helps. So it's I think my last three fights before that, I've improved with every performance. But I was still a little worried about how it would do against someone who's so accomplished, who's so
Yeah.
ranked, and I felt like I rose to the occasion. So no matter what the judges say or who the judges say won the fight, it was still a good performance on my part. I I saw a lot of areas where I can improve on. But I also did a lot of good things that we've been working on for the last like maybe 2 years. Um, so yeah, I think it's a win on my part. You know, maybe not literally, but mentally it's a win. It improved my confidence a lot, and it makes me really hopeful for the future when it comes to my career. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. I'm moving on. I'll still post pictures. Me
Yeah.
fucking her up, but I'm moving on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been there too, fighting against you know, Thais that you know, had like 200 fights on my record, and then you know, it would be a close fight, but they would win, outpoint me, but I would still feel like I got something out of it, and it was like a great learning lesson. And you know, I took that back to the training, and I improved much more after that. So you know, for people out there listening, even if you fail, you can still turn that into a positive action for the next time.
For sure, for sure.
All right. Just one more question, and then I'll let you go. This is from David Conker. When is your next fight? ASAP,
Uh,
right?
ASAP, yeah, I'm staying ready. I'm on my way to strength and conditioning, just trying to get a little stronger. Um, but yeah, I'm staying ready. I'm in the gym. I'm definitely in the gym more because I lost. You know, if I had won, I'd probably be like sipping a drink in my backyard right now, like you know, just
Yeah.
hanging out. But I've been grinding since the fight, so I'm gonna be ready for whoever and whenever. Still waiting for the matchmaker to tell me who and when. He's working on it. He's really excited about my next fight as well. So yeah, I'm staying ready.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. I
Thanks for having
appreciate
me,
it.
man.
Yeah, of course.
Nice
All
to
right.
see
And
you.
yeah, you too. And enjoy your training session. Oh, and say hi to your husband. I just saw him over there. I
Oh.
follow him. I follow him and his artwork. He's a great artist too.
Nice, awesome.
All right, guys.
All right, man. Thanks
All
a
right.
lot. Take care.
Bye.